The following morning, I awoke to a world transformed. The storm had passed, and a pale, watery sunlight was filtering through the grimy panes of my window. The sky was a canvas of soft grays and blues, and the air, though still cold, had lost its oppressive dampness. Yet, the sense of foreboding that had settled upon me the previous night remained, a cold knot of apprehension in the pit of my stomach. The strange, sorrowful sound I had heard in the corridor still echoed in my memory, a disquieting reminder of the hidden grief that permeated this house of shadows. I found Holmes already dressed and waiting for me in the corridor. He was, as always, a picture of calm, focused energy. The languor of Baker Street was a distant memory, replaced by the keen, alert intensity of a hunter on the trail. His eyes were bright, his senses sharp, his entire being attuned to the subtle currents of the mystery that was unfolding around us. "A fine morning, Watson," he said, his voice a low, steady murmur. "The air is fresh, the ground is soft. A perfect day for a constitutional. I should like to see these gardens, of which Mr. Finch spoke with such enthusiasm, and perhaps a glimpse of this legendary crimson bloom." His tone was casual, but I knew that this was no idle request. Holmes did not believe in coincidences, and he certainly did not believe in curses. The legend of the crimson bloom was, to him, not a supernatural tale, but a piece of data, a clue that pointed to a very human evil. He was not interested in the folklore, but in the facts that lay hidden beneath it. He wanted to see the flower, to examine it, to understand its connection to the fear that gripped this household. We descended the grand staircase to find the house in a state of quiet, nervous activity. The servants moved about their duties with a hushed, almost furtive air, their eyes darting nervously towards the closed doors of the dining room. Of Lord and Lady Harrington there was no sign. We found Mr. Finch, however, in the hall, pulling on a pair of sturdy walking boots. He greeted us with his customary cheerfulness, though I thought I detected a certain strain in his smile, a shadow of the previous night's tension in his eyes. "A splendid idea, Mr. Holmes," he boomed, when Holmes suggested a tour of the grounds. "The gardens are a bit of a wilderness, I'm afraid, but they have a certain romantic charm. And the greenhouse, the greenhouse is a world unto itself. A little pocket of the Amazon, right here in the heart of Sussex. You must see it." His enthusiasm was infectious, yet I could not shake the feeling that it was a mask, a carefully constructed facade to hide a deeper, more complex emotion. Was it fear, or was it something else entirely? We set out together, the three of us, into the crisp morning air. The gardens were indeed a wilderness. The paths were overgrown, the flower beds choked with weeds, the once manicured lawns a tangled mass of long wet grass. It was a place of profound and melancholy beauty, a testament to the slow, inexorable victory of nature over the ambitions of man. Finch, in his element, pointed out various plants and trees, his conversation a constant stream of Latin names and botanical trivia. He spoke of the challenges of cultivating rare species in the English climate, of the delicate balance of light and humidity required to coax a tropical flower into bloom. He was a man possessed by a genuine passion for his subject, and yet I could not escape the feeling that his cheerful chatter was a diversion, a way of avoiding the darker subjects that hung in the air between us. Holmes, for his part, listened with an air of polite interest, his gaze sweeping over the tangled landscape, his mind, I knew, working on a level far deeper than mere botany. He was observing the layout of the grounds, the proximity of the greenhouse to the main house, the various paths and entry points. He was constructing a mental map of the estate, a crucial tool for the investigation that he knew was to come. Finally we came to it. The greenhouse. It was a vast, imposing structure of glass and iron, its panes clouded with condensation, its ironwork rusted and streaked with green. It stood in a secluded corner of the garden, partially hidden by a grove of ancient yew trees, their dark, funereal branches casting long, skeletal shadows on the damp earth. The place had an air of secrecy, of isolation, as if it were a world apart from the rest of the estate. "Here we are," Finch announced with a flourish. "My little kingdom, my jungle in the heart of civilization." He slid open a heavy, groaning door, and we were immediately enveloped in a wave of warm, humid air, thick with the scent of damp earth, exotic blossoms, and something else, something faintly cloying and sweet, like overripe fruit. The contrast with the crisp, cold air outside was startling. It was, as Finch had said, like stepping into another world. The interior of the greenhouse was a riot of green. Great leafy plants with enormous waxy leaves pressed in on all sides, their foliage so dense that it created a perpetual twilight. The air was thick with moisture, and water dripped from the high glass ceiling, pattering softly on the leaves below. It was a place of vibrant, almost aggressive life. A jungle in miniature, where the struggle for survival was played out in a silent, relentless battle for light and space. Finch led us down a narrow, winding path, his voice a low, reverent whisper as he pointed out his prized specimens. There were orchids with petals like the wings of exotic insects, ferns with fronds as delicate as lace, and strange carnivorous plants with gaping mouths and glistening sticky traps. It was a collection that was both beautiful and faintly menacing, a testament to the strange and wonderful diversity of the natural world. And then, at the very center of the greenhouse, we saw it, the crimson bloom. It was a bed of flowers, perhaps 24 of them, growing in a raised, stone-lined planter. They were unlike any flower I had ever seen. Their petals were a deep, vibrant crimson, the color of freshly spilled blood. They were large, trumpet-shaped blossoms with a waxy, almost translucent texture. They seemed to glow with an inner light, a fiery, malevolent beauty that was both captivating and deeply unsettling. This, then, was the source of the legend, the flower that was said to be cursed, the harbinger of death. "Magnificent, are they not?" Finch murmured, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and professional pride. "Amaryllis sanguinea, though this particular cultivar is unique. I have never seen another like it. The color, the size, the sheer vibrancy. It is a masterpiece of nature." Holmes said nothing. He stood before the bed of flowers, his hands clasped behind his back, his expression one of intense, focused concentration. He wasn't admiring their beauty. He was studying them, dissecting them with his sharp, analytical gaze, searching for the secret that lay hidden behind their blood-red petals. It was at that moment that I saw it. A splash of color on the dark, loamy earth at the base of the planter, something that did not belong. It was a man's shoe, a sturdy leather walking shoe lying on its side. And then I saw the leg, clad in tweed trousers, and the arm, flung out at an unnatural angle. "My God," I whispered, my voice a strangled croak. "Finch, look." Finch followed my gaze, and the color drained from his face. He let out a strangled cry, a sound of pure, unadulterated horror. For there, lying face down amidst the blood-red flowers of the crimson bloom, was the body of a man. It was Alistair Finch, the cheerful, talkative botanist who had led us to this place, who had spoken with such passion about his little kingdom, was lying dead at our feet. For a moment, we were all frozen in a state of shocked disbelief. The scene was so surreal, so utterly incongruous. The vibrant, living beauty of the flowers, the warm, humid air, the peaceful, jungle-like atmosphere. And in the midst of it all, the stark, brutal reality of death. Then, the spell was broken. A scream, high and shrill, pierced the quiet air of the greenhouse. It was Miss Vance. She had, it seemed, followed us from the house, and had arrived just in time to witness the horrific discovery. She stood at the entrance to the greenhouse, her face a mask of terror, her hands pressed to her mouth, her eyes wide with a horror that was too deep for words. Her scream was followed by the sound of running footsteps, and a moment later, Lord and Lady Harrington appeared, their faces pale with alarm. Lord Harrington took one look at the scene, at the body lying amidst the crimson flowers, and let out a low, guttural moan. His legs seemed to give way beneath him, and he collapsed onto the stone floor in a dead faint. Lady Harrington, however, did not scream. She did not faint. She stood as still as a statue, her face a mask of cold, unreadable composure. Her eyes, those hard, flinty eyes, were fixed on the body of Alistair Finch, and her expression was one of, what? Shock? Grief? Or was it something else? Something that looked chillingly like satisfaction. In the midst of this chaos, Holmes was an island of calm. He moved with a swift, purposeful energy, his voice cutting through the rising tide of panic like a surgeon's scalpel. "Watson, see to Lord Harrington," he commanded, his tone sharp and authoritative. "Miss Vance, you will return to the house immediately and send a servant to fetch the local constabulary. Do not touch anything. Do not allow anyone else to enter the greenhouse. The scene must be preserved." His words had an immediate calming effect. Miss Vance, though still trembling with shock, nodded and fled, her footsteps echoing on the stone path. I rushed to Lord Harrington's side, loosening his collar and checking his pulse. It was weak but steady. He had fainted from the shock, nothing more. Holmes, meanwhile, had turned his attention to the crime scene. He moved with a slow, deliberate grace, his eyes scanning every inch of the ground around the body. He was like a predator, circling its prey, taking in every detail, every nuance, every scrap of evidence. He did not touch the body. He simply observed, his mind a cold, calculating engine of logic and deduction. After a few moments, I left Lord Harrington in the care of his wife, who had, to my surprise, knelt beside him and was chafing his wrists with a surprising show of concern. I approached Holmes, my medical bag in hand. "What do you make of it, Holmes?" I asked, my voice low. "A most unusual case, Watson," he murmured without looking up. "A man is found dead in a locked greenhouse, surrounded by poisonous flowers. There are no obvious signs of a struggle, no weapon in sight. It is a puzzle worthy of our talents. "May I examine the body?" I asked. "By all means," he said. "But be careful not to disturb anything. Our local constabulary may not be the most astute of men, but we must at least give them the courtesy of an untainted crime scene." I knelt beside the body of Alistair Finch. He was lying face down, his head turned to one side. His face was peaceful, his eyes closed, his expression one of serene repose. There were no marks of violence on his body, no signs of a struggle. His clothes were undisturbed, his hands were clean. I felt for a pulse, but there was none. I placed my hand on his chest, but there was no heartbeat. Alistair Finch was dead. I made a preliminary examination, noting the body temperature, the lividity, the state of the pupils. "He has been dead for several hours," I said, my voice a low murmur. "Sometime during the night, I should think. There are no external injuries, no signs of strangulation or a blow to the head. The cause of death is not immediately apparent. It could be a heart seizure brought on by a shock or a sudden fright. Or," Holmes said, his voice a low, grim whisper, "it could be poison." He pointed a long, thin finger at the flowers that surrounded the body, the crimson blooms. Their blood-red petals seemed to mock us, their vibrant beauty a stark and terrible contrast to the pale, still face of the dead man. It was then that Holmes's eyes narrowed. He knelt down, his gaze fixed on a small object that lay half hidden in the dark, loamy soil near Finch's outstretched hand. It was a small, almost unnoticeable thing, something that anyone else would have overlooked. But to Holmes, it was a beacon, a signpost pointing the way to the truth. He took a pair of tweezers from his pocket and, with infinite care, picked up the object. It was a small silver cufflink, intricately carved in the shape of a serpent eating its own tail. It was not Finch's. I had noticed his own cufflinks at dinner the previous night. They were simple, gold ovals. Holmes examined the cufflink for a moment, his eyes gleaming with a cold intellectual fire. He then placed it carefully in a small evidence pouch and rose to his feet. He looked at me, his expression one of grim satisfaction. The mask of the idle, bored dilettante was gone, replaced by the face of the hunter, the avenger, the seeker of truth. "The game, Watson," he said, his voice a low, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate with a terrible, controlled energy. "The game is afoot.